pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next item, we'll open the floor for public comment. If you do have a comment, it should, at this time, it should be about something that's not already on the agenda. There will be a second opportunity at the end of the meeting for public comment. Okay? All right. If none, the next item is the approval of the minutes from the October 14th, 2025 meeting. Any comments on that? Yes.
Item number 7. I'm sorry, number 8. We did discuss also sidewalks and curbs. Conditional use application. You have a question?
So what do you guys at the end?
We had discussions regarding sidewalk, curb, and bollards. And I actually made a motion. The second, and I rescinded that sidewalk.
I'll add that. Anything else?
Make a motion to approve.
Gentlemen, motion for approval. Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next item on the agenda, the initial solo application. It's for subdivision plan for 620 Normal Lane and 701 South Points Road. It proposes conveying 17,158 square feet of 701 South 5 Points Road to the address 620 Normal Lane. No construction is proposed with this application.
Is anybody here tonight for this application? The proposal is to take the existing property line, which is right here. This is Normal Lane property. They have a small lot. This is the Normal Lane property, so they have a large lot. This is the piece they want to just take this property line on Highway in green and reestablish it here, transferring this little portion from the property left to the property right. No construction, just a land transfer.
We don't know why they want to do the land transfer.
It doesn't make anything, it doesn't change anything from non-conforming to conforming.
Don't know. That hasn't been reviewed yet. So it's been submitted to the Chester County Planning Commission for their review. Tonight's initial submission, if you guys have any concerns. Legally, you really can't ask if they're gonna, you can ask them when they come before you for approval, but they don't have to tell you if they do anything. It may just be to make the lots more similar in size. Because the lot to the left is much larger. If you look at it existing, the existing lot on South 5 Points is currently 62,000 square feet, it's going to be 45, and the other lot is 28, going to be 45. So it's basically making the two lots here about the same size. Within a couple square feet of each other. A couple hundred square feet. Yes, Doug?
Is the lot on the left large enough to be subdivided?
The lot on the left is, well, it's not being subdivided.
Is it large enough to be subdivided in the future, as it is?
If they left it the way it is, it could potentially be, yes, if they leave it the way it is, it could be subdivided.
Okay, so
Because the minimum lot size in this district, according to the plan, which I can't verify because I haven't reviewed yet, the minimum lot size only plan is 18,000 square feet. That lot right now is 62,000 square feet.
so the
Not taking down to 45, we potentially could, but I don't know how you would get a entrance into the back of this lot to be able to make it conforming to provide a conforming entrance.
for frontage.
Not frontage, entrance. They can use a flag lot, but then they have to deal with it.
Yeah.
We permit flag lots, but the way they, but I don't think, looking at these two properties, that this is a potential for future future subdivision. This is just, this guy's got 28,000 square feet, this guy's got 62. He's going to purchase 17,000 square feet from this guy and make him both about 45,000 change.
But then that would give him the ability to subdivide his time.
This guy.
The guy, right? Yes.
Yes, this lot, if they can meet all the requirements, they can come back through for a subdivision in the future if they choose to. But I don't know if, moving forward, if the flag lot and the requirements and all that, where that's going to fall out, with if that permitted where it is and how they deal with it.
In our ordinances, as it stands, do we have a minimum frontage for requirement for,
A flag lot needs 50 feet.
50 feet minimum frontage?
Yes. 50 feet is measured at the street line. So I don't know if this lot would be able to comply with the flag because of the way it's currently configured for its frontage is a little bit along the cul-de-sac. It may not be able to get a flag through there. This lot might be able to get a flag through over here, but I couldn't tell you. It's not part of the proposal. I don't speculate on what may come. I look at what's in front of us.
It could be that the person on the right wants to purchase that property to preserve it, possibly.
Could be, or it could be they wanted a bigger backyard for a pool. Because right now, they probably don't have any room, but this is a property line, there's probably not enough room to get a pool in the backyard. Or enough land area because of lot coverage.
Is it fairly level? I don't see any grades.
It doesn't need to be, it doesn't matter, because all it is literally shifting the lot line from where the Z is to where this black line is. And shifting this lot line here, just have to go through the subdivision process, because in Pennsylvania, a lot line change is still considered legally a subdivision. There is no legal process just to say, hey, I'm going to swap land with my neighbor, fill out a plan, board signs it, it goes through. It doesn't, legally, it can't happen that way. It's got to go through the process. That's why it's important. So it's a minimal review as far as board zoning and just a couple of things I verify to make sure the content of the plans make sense and it's not typos and numbers of areas that don't make sense. You guys did this over there on Goshen Road, just came through this year. Did the same thing, 2 property spots. One gave the other one, even a long, make it square. That's all this is. Do you have any questions or any concerns you want me to be aware of when I do my review? Okay.
Yeah, I have no objection. Okay, we'll move on to a preliminary final subdivision plan for 20 Ellis Lane. It's also known as the Ellis Preserve.
Do you want me to?
Go, yeah, there's nothing else for me to,
So I issued a November 5th review letter. Additionally, in your packet is a November 3rd letter from the Township Traffic Engineer, Homer Taylor. A November 4th letter from Carroll Engineering, which I referenced in my letter. And then a November 5th letter from the applicant's engineer regarding waivers waivers for the project. Typically, you do not, you as a planning commission do not weigh in on waivers for projects are typically procedural or technical. But the second waiver is regarding the not provide sidewalk, which is a saldo issue for the layout of the site. That's why I have it in front of you tonight, so you guys can consider. That's the only waiver that you would be considering making the recommendation to the board. The rest of them are technical in nature. I can tell you the first one is just the processing. That's something that's not an issue. The waiver of the 4-foot sidewalk instead of the 5-foot sidewalk. There is support from the Carroll Engineering as long as they provide the adequate turning areas which are required by PennDOT and ADA standards. So 5-foot sidewalk allows you to pass, 4-foot doesn't, so there's a requirement to have turning areas so every so many linear feet in between them so people can get to those areas and pass. That's what that's for. PennDOT has standards as an ADA. So that one is not an issue because PennDOT can be waiving the sidewalk as well. We will make the comment that we need to be meeting those type of standards for that. So and the other one was about pipe diameter, because our ordinance requires a minimum pipe diameter, even if it's not required. standard waiver we get, as long as they make sure that they provide the proper calculations that they do. So the only one that you will be weighing in on as your discussion tonight would be the second waiver request about the partial waiver to not provide Ellis Lane. I think it's written wrong. Your plan shows it along Stratford. You asked them to provide it along Ellis and not along Stratford. Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, so it's along Ellis and not along Stratford is the waiver request. So that's what you would be making a recommendation, part of your recommendation on how you feel about the recommendation to the board on that specific waiver request. Other than that, it's your standard, my letter, which would be page 4 of my letter, lists out a couple of conditions. My comments are pretty standard. The O&M agreement, the occupancy permit things, there's a couple. Page 2 covers the waivers, and page 1, the first one talks about the professional security, which is a standard item they have to do anyway for our ordinance. That's always a condition of approval because that professional security is not finalized and agreed to until all the plans are done, and then it's posted through the process after approval with the professional security agreement that's coordinated with the solicitor. So that is a separate issue that's not something you guys can weigh in on. So it's a standard condition of approval for all developments in the township. That being said, the applicant is here tonight to make a presentation. Yes, Doug?
I'm sorry, Brian, you're speaking kind of fast. Can you please repeat the waiver we have to consider?
Oh, it's the
sidewalks.
Sorry, it's the letter I was laying separate because you didn't get it in your packet because it came in after I made your packet. The letter laying there separate in front of you. That letter right there is the second one down, the second waiver request down for 72-24-2A.
Okay,
Partial waiver.
Okay,
So there's
sidewalk on Ellis Lane only and not Strasburg.
Yes.
Whereas it would normally be required on Strasburg also.
Yes. The orders requires sidewalk along both frontages, by the way the orders is written. They're requesting to provide one frontage, not both.
Is there hardship listed also somewhere in that?
Hardship does not mean listed for a waiver, it's not the variance. They don't have to prove hardship to you. They have to prove hardship or sell it to the board when they come to the board for their own, which would be in December. But here, it's in front of you tonight, for the planning commission, as part of your recommendation to the board, your recommendation should include your recommendation to the board regarding that waiver request, because it's a planning request. It's not a procedural or technical request. That's why I'm bringing it in front of you. What do you want to put before first?
Why don't we do the landscape? I'll just kind of step further.
You have that separate, as part of the
Yes.
I think that was, we've got burn zoning, view zoning, rendering zoning, Strasburg zoning, architectural front, and wind development. Yeah. Nothing said landscaping on it, that's fine. So you, good? Give me a second. I just closed my computer too much.
Thank you, Attorney.
Sure, yeah, I'll just kind of do my intro. My name is Ted Worrell. I'm here tonight with my partner, Rich Santelari, and our wonderful engineer, Linda from Inland. Rich and I are the owners of Best Bill Real Estate, Chester County Contracting. We're a local real estate professionals with a construction company. Most recently, Land Health. I say most recently, but actually this project began almost 18 months ago, coming up on 2 years. And it has been the product of a lot of thoughtful consideration. Meetings with the township, meetings with the historic commission. This is actually the 4th time you guys have seen this project in some capacities, and hopefully you're familiar with it by now. But what I'd like to do is maybe just kind of step through where we're at to date on the project. Brian laid pretty much everything out. And then maybe just give a very brief summary of what we're doing and answer any questions. So to date, as Brian mentioned, we've addressed all the engineering comments that came back from Carroll Engineering. We just most recently received our MPDS permit from the county. We've satisfied the fire department comments. We talked a little bit about that. We have a draft declaration plan for the HOA. All those documents are complete. There'll be a very small HOA here with limited fees, which everyone is happy about. We're in the process of preparing our final documents. So all the things that Brian kind of touched on, there's still some steps that need to be done on the legal front. And we, as Brian mentioned, included a couple waivers. One sidewalks, I'm sure we'll talk about what that partial waiver kind of means from our perspective and why that's there. So the site consists of 2 parcels. It is a total of 3.2 acres, and there's 2 existing dwellings. Here, 20 Ellis Lane, and down here at 1240 East Strasburg Road. One of those dwellings is historic, the other is not, but both will remain. The barn is not shown here, but there is a barn on the property that is going to be repurposed, that's going to be taken down but repurposed in a number of ways, and we can go through all of what that means and how all that's going to be done throughout the process. For things like entrance monuments, we work with the Historic Commission very closely to design an entrance monument that's consistent with what you would see in Cheshire, England, which is where a lot of our columns come from, that's situated on our barns here in Chester County. Very beautiful. There's a stone in the barn that says 1811, and presumably it was carved in 1811. So we're actually going to take that stone and put that in the front entrance monument as well. There's a dry lake retaining wall along this eastern side of the property that's going to be using that same barn stone. The barn beams are going to be used on the entrance monuments as well as in each of the townhomes. We had a design meeting with the whole team today, talking about how they're going to be incorporated with the mantles and things like that. So we've got the preservation of the historic asset. We've got 14 new townhomes that are all going to be 3-bed, 3-bath, 2-car garage. Really a perfect product for what we think is going to meet the market where there is demand today. Right? It's very difficult to find new construction in West Goshen Township that doesn't cost $7, $8, $9, over $1 million. So for that, we're very excited about it. We're excited about this project because of the transition from residential to commercial. On the eastern side, we've got the shopping center. On the western side, we've got some residential. So this feels like a perfect bridge between the two. And as such, it's a nice. So I think I've touched on everything. One of the comments was regarding some sidewalk. So maybe Brian, we could bring up Landon on and show the sidewalk is. So our proposal, after working with the engineers, being on the site, is to have a sidewalk that connects Ellis and Strasburg with this retail development here. There's a number of reasons for that. First and foremost, there is an endpoint to the sidewalk, right? So it leads you to somewhere. You can go to the Goshen Fair, you can go to that retail center. So our objective was to have kind of a thoroughfare for them. Secondly, if you spent time out at this site, which we've spent considerable time at, we've actually seen kids going along Ellis to school. They walk in the road, and obviously it's a safety concern on many levels, but it's practical. Conversely, when you think about Strasburg, the reason why there's no sidewalk there is because topographically there's a steep slope all along Strasburg that is basically impossible to build a sidewalk without having to meander back and forth to come down to meet PennDOT's, right of way. So practically speaking, we were thinking to ourselves, this really doesn't make any sense. It's going to change the view shed. We would lose several mature trees that we're trying to retain. And furthermore, they kind of lead you to nowhere. There's residential properties that will never be developed. There's no school down there. This we feel like satisfies the ordinance, but also it's in line with what is going to benefit the community. So that was kind of our logic at the site.
May I ask why you wanted to go from 5 feet down to 4 feet? You can't do a 5-foot sidewalk, or?
That's a good question. I mean, practically speaking, I think this sidewalk is pretty close to the right of way. It's a small right of way, so you're really taking what's going to be a nice combination of sidewalk and green space to, I mean, 5 feet's a pretty big sidewalk. It's going to be substantial. It would be substantial. So 4 feet is what you see most in walking in Westchester, things like that. It's pretty standard. And 5 feet is great, but we felt like this was a better use of space.
So 5 foot, you would lose some trees and?
You're going to lose grass, trees, you're going to lose part of your berm. It gets complicated, especially with how tight it is along that road.
So the 4 foot, you keep some of the trees?
Yeah, there's a very robust landscape.
Okay.
Are you familiar with the comprehensive plan?
I was just reading it, I think it's changed. Is it one coming out?
That's in 2019.
Yes.
We have several members on the board that actually wrote that plan. And I got a compliment because I've read it now several times, and it is a look into the future of the township. We're going to think about, I think Terry, Doug was maybe part of that, and John. And the third bullet point on the comprehensive plan is pedestrian sidewalks and bikeways. And one of the things they were specific about in the plan was sidewalks along West Lane, which proposed, but also along Strasburg Lane. And it may be a sidewalk in number now, but 20 years from now, open houses, I guess. And it was specifically mentioned in this plan that it should be done. And the reason, you've already mentioned one of the reasons is it's kids walk. Kids walk along Strasburg Road and walk along West Lane to get to the high school. And this is all part of this master, at least in my opinion, it's part of the master plan. So that kids' safety will be considered, and it's kind of a future where we need, at least in my opinion, what we need. But it's all part of this comprehensive plan. You may want to take a look at that. And as far as the 4-foot sidewalk goes, I mean, you're talking about 12 inches wide. I don't necessarily think that it's hardship, but there are.
Let me comment on 2 things. Number one, the 5-foot sidewalk is an ADA requirement for passing. So that's why I talked about the condition that is in both my letter and in the Carol Jr. letter. If you read them, it looks at making sure there's adequate passing spaces that meet the ADA requirements. You can only go so far without having a 5-foot passing space. So they may have to add 5-foot spots if the driveways are too far apart per ADA requirements, and the driveway, which is the emergency access, would not count as the ADA service because it's grass. So they may have to add the 5-foot areas for turning and passing as required by ADA. That was one of the comments in both Carol Jr. letter and my letter regarding that waiver request as far as the width. So technically, a 4-foot sidewalk does work, yes, but it does not meet the requirement.
I think every 200 feet we need to put in a 5-foot.
They would have to modify the plan to adjust to that. The waiver request that you would be speaking on and making a recommendation to the board, so that either, and your recommendation would be to the board that's regarding providing the sidewalks along Stratford. There's not, that's what the recommendation to the board is, how you feel they should view the waiver request. The board also has the authority to say, yes, we grant a waiver, or no, and they have to sell the waiver to the board. Part of the information the board will have is the board recommendation to the board regarding that waiver.
Let's say, for example, along Strasburg Road, you could put a sidewalk, just as hypothetical. But then to the west, on the bottom of the plan there's private residences. So Steve was mentioning having a sidewalk there, and then maybe in the future there might be sidewalks put in at those private residences. But I don't think we could in the future force sidewalks upon residences that are already there. And Brian, you can correct me if I'm wrong. So
if the township is desirous of installing a sidewalk on Strasburg from this all the way out to Palin to West Central Pike, PennDOT's going to require you to get sign off from each property owner across. And then the township is required to go through all the right-of-way acquisition, all that's done, but PennDOT is not, it's all PennDOT permit, it's all controlled by PennDOT because they're right of way. We don't control it, we don't issue the permit, they do. So even if you say yes to the sidewalk along Ellis, and PennDOT comes back and says, no, they can't put it in because they don't feel it's safe, I don't know where we fall out, because PennDOT controls it, they'll go and put the sidewalk in the right line. We don't, it's the state road. So yes, we can tell them they can propose it, but ultimately PennDOT has the authority under the HOB regarding configuration, the layout, the design, all that of that walkway in the right of way. Their right of way, it's not ours. If this was township roads, we would be in a way different position. Being that both frontages are PennDOT frontages, they have to deal with PennDOT HOPs. One thing they don't have yet, have you scoped that yet with PennDOT? You know, scoping yet? PennDOT, scoping it back.
Ellis Lane is not.
Sorry, Ellis is a township road. Yes,
Yeah.
sorry, okay, yes, you don't have to deal with it right here at the corner,
Right, that little piece.
this little piece right here. It's right, the waiver, the conditions of the waiver are to follow the PennDOT standards for the sidewalk on
Correct.
Ellis. That's the conditions of the waiver as written, the waiver support as written in Carroll's law. Is using the PennDOT standards for constructing this sidewalk. So, sorry.
Yeah, I think it was just.
Yes, it's the same right here. It's PennDOT control. As far as the construction and the layout of the sidewalk, Carroll Engineering, in their letter, said that if the board would consider the waiver, the board should consider the waiver conditioned upon them using PennDOT standards to construct that. So, does that help, Doug? Ted, would not help?
Yeah, I think it would, because there's a lot of practical things too that go into.
I go down the street, you're all experts.
So as you can see, this corner, if sidewalk is, if you go right down, if sidewalk is to be required down Strasburg Road, you've got you've got a very steep slope there that would either, you have to have tons of excavation beyond anything that's really practical for a sidewalk, or you're having you go back the other direction, or you're having this meandering ramp down to Strasburg Road that, like we said, needs moving utility poles. I mean, it would be weeks of road closures and disruption really to the road that, if we think about practically speaking, you know, where we've seen those kids going, it's up to the school, right? It's up Ellis. So part of that reason, not moving mature trees, not moving these utility poles that, quite frankly, are going to be, practically speaking, really I shouldn't say not because they're going to be extremely difficult to figure out how that would work. And the net benefit is one that we feel like makes more sense to focus. If a 5 foot is required on Ellis Lane, and that makes more sense, then okay, I think that probably makes sense. It's going to be heavily traveled. Or it could be heavily traveled. It's still very busy. So Brian, if you go back up to the intersection, part of too far. I don't know. Yeah. Yes.
Let's get through the intersection. Drive back to the intersection. Let's get through.
So yeah, it's kind of tough to see, but really what we're asking for in this partial waiver is acknowledgement of the fact that we do have sidewalks provided in a manner that is going to meet the needs of the township, that is still, it's a partial waiver for a reason, it's still in line with the codes and all the subdivision related ordinance, somewhat. But we're trying to be practical about how it's going to be used, about how it's going to change the view shed of this corner. That large mature tree is gone. There's a large Japanese maple that's going to be removed that we're trying to retain. So it really is going to dramatically change that corner. And then you're going to have this strange, because it has to be ADA compliant, you can't put stairs in. You have to do this strange sidewalk that goes down and comes back, and goes down and goes down, and it goes to the other. So that's the logic, right? I understand what the code says, and we understand what the subdivision that ordinance say, we understand what the long-term view is. But I think if we think about what that long-term view is, it's connecting different places for new developments, because you're going to have potentially, maybe a connection between the high school. Right? You're going to have things that are going to be a little more practical. So that's kind of where our thoughts are. That's what we're thinking for that. So I'd love to answer any more questions about that or anything else.
So you're saying along Ellis Lane, even with the 4-foot sidewalk, you're going to lose the trees?
Well, we're trying to say that right now we haven't stepped back. If we can, if it's going to be 5 feet, I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah, right here in front of the house, we took the sidewalk, we meandered up close to the house where those little kitchen posts are, and then we come back down to the street. So we're trying to avoid cutting down that beautiful mature tree in the front left there, because it just adds character to the whole front of the historic home.
If they would put the sidewalk out, they put the 5-foot sidewalk out along the road, if that tree's gone.
That tree's gone. Yeah.
There's nothing they can do about it. They're putting the tree, their proposal is to run the sidewalk behind that tree.
And that makes sense there because there appears to already be somewhere on the sidewalk and it seems to be more of a level area to begin with.
Exactly.
You can see where kids have walked, on top of the berms there.
And then what happens when it wraps around Strasburg? Because this looks like it has a steeper grade than Strasburg from the visuals right now.
Because right now we have it going from the hitching post straight out to and down to Strasburg. That was one issue that came up with thinking about PennDOT. Now PennDOT's going to look at that and say, well, that's got to be ADA compliant within my right of way, and that would mean the kind of meandering, slow down, and then slow down again to make it meet the ADA grades. So we came up today. I was looking at it with Scott in the office. He's our PennDOT guru. And he says, Linda, why don't you just come across the hitching post and then take a right and come down to Ellis? And I said, Scott, that's a really good idea because I've noticed when I've driven back by here that the push button that the kids need to use to cross safely is right here on this pole, which is on Ellis. So if we do drop down to Strasburg, now the kids have to walk back up to get to the push button. So when we do our final construction plans, we are going to propose that we come down to the push button. And that solves two problems. One, brings the kids right to where they need to be to cross safely, and two, avoids PennDOT permitting and a zigzag ramp to get down to that side.
Concerning the sidewalk, potential sidewalk along Strasburg, it seems like we visited this the last time and concluded that it was a sidewalk to nowhere with no hope of well, not no hope, but no nearby possibility of a future connection. It's putting too much on the landowner to require that. And while I like sidewalks, I still agree with that conclusion.
How far down Strasburg would the sidewalk go? Would it go all the way to Route 3, or would it end at somewhere along there? That's what I'm looking at the map.
Well, probably and here. Right? Yeah. This is all part of it, but then again, it either ends right here.
Yeah, the pole, this pole's the end of the property, so that's why they take it to leave it that pole.
Okay, so stop.
And then it's all single family homes that have.
I mean, the Little League gives kids a place to walk. There's no place to walk on East Stroudsburg. And I'm not seeing a lot of mature trees along there that you brought up. Maybe I'm missing something.
You're right, that's back, yeah, back at that corner. Primarily, there's two. There's those trees that will be impacted. There's a telephone pole there. Signage.
I'm not seeing trees.
Yeah.
I'm seeing the fence.
It's at the corner, yeah. So that tree right
You're
there.
going to have to do something with that anyway because of the sidewalk coming along.
Well, if we drop down on us, then that would be able to step as well. If already,
Yes.
what we're proposing. comes
Yes.
on us.
Steve, the question tonight is not, is how the planning commission feels about the waiver request, making recommendations to the board. If the board grants the waiver, the board grants the waiver. If the board doesn't grant the waiver, then I think we could change the design. But that's not, changing the design is not for you tonight. For you tonight is your position on the waiver request.
Well, that's what I'm asking questions on, is the Stroudsburg Road elimination of the sidewalk in Stroudsburg Road.
Yes, that's the waiver request.
So that's what I'm.
Yes. But as far as changing the plan to add that, it's not.
I just basically have a question then whether it's possible, some of the points you brought up, are they actually relevant? Like removing trees, that's all I'm trying to get at, is what, what the applicant's asking about. Is it possible? I think it's possible, but, we're gonna have sidewalks in Dunedin come up here every year. It's just gonna happen. And like I said, I go back to the comprehensive plan that you guys put together, and I'm really impressed by it. It labels exactly where you wanted sidewalks in the township. And it's specific. It's not every place, but it's very specific in certain areas where you recommended to have sidewalks. And this intersection of Stroudsburg Road is part of that. So that's all I'm trying to bring up. It's something you guys reconsider as well. And now's the opportunity to make this happen or not.
Steve, do you understand the construction problems of doing that? And that doesn't phase you?
Yes, it does, but I'm not sure that construction problems are as bad as what they are suggesting. Okay? I mean, they're going to have to go to PennDOT and get a waiver. They're going to have to go to PennDOT and submit.
I mean, maybe I can address that. Feel free to chime in. Truthfully, we think, we do feel that, having that sidewalk go along Ellis, come down to that intersection, just having spent time out there, is a really practical and meaningful thing. We think that actually solves a problem that we heard from one resident at one of our meetings. She said we would love to have a sidewalk that goes up to the shopping center along Ellis. It was in a zoning hearing for the meeting. It was great. Okay, great feedback. We talked about sidewalks here. I think when you layer in the PennDOT right of way, the moving of utility poles, there isn't a PennDOT waiver, the meandering ADA compliant ramp that's going to look like a giant concrete block on that corner there. It's just one where I step back and like, if this was going to a park, I think there's a discussion to have, but it's going to end at the property and not be utilized like the Ellis side of it. So for all those reasons why we, as a group and landed on this design, it was not a quick decision. We spent countless hours going over this, and for that reason, this is what we learned. We think there's reasonable justification.
One thing I'd like to point out too, again, Ted mentioned the steep slope here on Stroudsburg, so requiring a sidewalk that continues down and steep slope most likely requires to have a retaining wall, which is additional maintenance and things like that that they don't work occur, and who would be responsible for the chain wall in years to come?
You would also have to protect the sidewalk with a curb being that close to, and you're gonna have to cut all that land out. And also, as far as the comprehensive plan, the comprehensive plan was conceptual. It wasn't construction plans. It wasn't land planning. It was an overall concept of what we'd like to see, where it would be practical. But in this place right here, if that was more flat and there was more room, because we don't want people walking where they're going to get hit by cars either. But people are going to walk there no matter what, and they're going to have to take some responsibility for their own safety. But if I were in your shoes, we'd have a hard time putting this on.
I agree. Yeah, and that's exactly why we landed with where we landed. So, considering all the factors, that this was that intersection of benefits to community that was.
How about the opposite side of Strasburg? Is there a right of way or a sidewalk? Would that be a better option?
Once again, you're dealing with single-family homes, and if you put sidewalk over there, each homeowner has to sign off on it.
Right.
They're going to have
All
to
right.
maintain it, and then it has to permit it. I'm not with it.
If I'm understanding this correctly, we need to weigh in on the waiver, and then weigh in on the overall recommendations of supervisors.
Correct.
So we want to break that into two parts, versus just voice or make a
So you
recommendation.
have
for the
three
waiver.
options on the waiver request. You can recommend the waiver, you just are going to stay neutral and let the board make their decision. Or it's similar to your zoning hearing board, which is the next thing. You guys want to just stay neutral and not make a recommendation, let the board fall out, or you make a specific recommendation that you want language given to the board of recommendation. It's not just deny the waiver, recommend the board deny the waiver because you can lay out why the condition denied. Reasoning for denying the waiver. And that's your two options. If you support the waiver, you can say you support it, but it cut off just to stay neutral, and then the board can make a decision.
So you have three choices.
Support it.
Support it, not support it, be neutral.
If you're not supporting, you need to state why you don't support it. It's not just we don't recommend the
Well, we're
waiver.
going to break it
we don't
into
recommend
three
it.
as well.
The motion would be, we don't recommend the waiver be granted by the board because, we recommend the board consider denying the waiver because. And the because needs to be a reasoning in your motion of why the planning commission feels the board should consider denying the waiver.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to support the waiver.
With respect to all three,
No, the only one you're making a motion on is
Just this,
the sidewalk.
provide the sidewalk along
uh,
Stratford.
yes.
Is this just to get a feel of how the board is feeling before you to give the, yes, the neutral?
Whether this is.
I'll make a motion.
No, this is a motion.
I know, but before you make your motion.
No,
Okay, never mind.
So he's made a motion.
Okay.
If the motion passes, the motion passes. If the motion doesn't pass, it will be a different motion. Or that. And then there'll be a second round of motions. Any other question about the plan? The other motion would be the approval motion, recommendation for the plan, separate from the waiver. The waiver's one, the second motion comes later when we adopt the actual plan itself.
Okay, two motions.
Two motions.
So right now we have a motion to support, seconded.
Okay, all in favor?
Questions?
Aye.
Sorry, Terry. Hang on, Terry. Any questions from anybody up front? Any questions from the audience?
Okay. Questions from the planning commission? No? No? The audience, questions? Yes?
My name's Irene Benjamin. I'm a West Goshen resident. I live on a very busy road. It's not a question, but share some information, personal experience. PICO wanted to put a telephone pole right in front of my driveway. And I fought it, so they moved it somewhere else. and they informed me it costs $80,000 for each single telephone pole. This was a few years ago. Just something to keep in the back of your mind. The other thing is with reference to traffic on Strasburg Road. At the end of Westchester Pike is an apartment complex that is the opposite side of where 20 Elks Lane is. Those kids would probably be walking along the opposite side of where the grading is, which takes them closer to Ellis Lane where the school is. Not with reference to today, but if it's in the future, the other side may be a safer place for a sidewalk with reference to getting the kids to school and walking safely. And less exposure for traffic accidents, which I've also had exposure to living on as a work, including heavy carts landing in my hedges. Just personal comments from personal experience.
Thank you. So, ready for a vote? So, all in favor of granting the,
Supporting the waiver.
I'm sorry, supporting, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nay? One, two?
Just one.
Your hand's not up. Thank you.
Okay, so that's the first position. You guys, before we go any further, does anybody have any questions on the actual plans?
There's in Carroll's engineer's letter, he mentioned about the sidewalks that presently proposed as being crushed stone. And they said according to ordinance, it should be concrete. So what's your thinking here?
We're going to do concrete.
If they could be concrete?
Yes, and we thought if we wanted to try to do something just a little bit different in front of this one home, maybe we could use skin concrete, color, something.
It's gotta be ADA compliant.
Yes.
It's stone will be ADA compliant. That's why we love it. It's this section you can see here, here's the concrete, here the edge of the right way, this piece coming through is going to be stone and have the concrete here. That's the proposal. Carol would comment on, I take neutral because Carol made a comment about it. In the end, it's gotta be ADA compliant for the sidewalk, and never just go to do something with concrete on it.
You said something about fire or fire hydrants? Where?
Yes, there was a comment on the, from the fire chief. And so presently, if you zoom out, there's 2 fire hydrants that anchor each side of the property. There's one directly in front of 1250 Strasburg Road. There's one that's right over here, that's along Ellis Lane. So the one comment was that the fire hydrant, oddly enough, over here on Ellis Lane is turned in towards the development. So they requested that it turn out so that it's useful to anchor both sides of the site. But both the PSIs at these we had pressure test on were exceptional. And the units are smoking, so we addressed those comments.
And what's the distance to the townhomes, to the fire hydrants, if you know it?
I did know it. It's, I want to say 200 feet
About
on either
250
side.
feet. I think we show 400-foot radiuses around each hydrant on the plan, so you can see that it envelops the whole.
Which plans, which sheets
Go
of?
back to one of the overalls. Keep going. This one. Yeah, there they are.
Is that
See
this?
this one? Yeah, that one is enveloped.
This is for the other hydrant. This is, so both hydrants enveloped up.
And did you say the units do have sprinkler systems also?
Yeah.
The comment was to rotate the hydrant so it faces a different, because the way the rotation of the hydrant isn't useful for anything but
Facing out the wind direction.
right. It's facing north, but they wanted, the fire marshal requested to be rotated.
And it's a public hydrant. It's not private, so that's what I'm.
That was already, that was handled, that's fire marshal, I believe that was handled, but
Yes.
hey, if there's any outstanding comments, the fire marshal still has yet to weigh on the files. That's in front of you tonight. The building department.
Yes.
Are you going to present the plan itself tomorrow?
I'd love to, yeah, sure. Why don't we go to scroll up, Brian, if you don't mind. Scroll down, you said grading. Yeah, let's do that. Perfect. Let's zoom in a little bit. So I'll talk a little bit about stormwater. So as the plan, as you see here, there are 4 BMPs, 4 stormwater facilities. You've got a rain garden over here, a rain garden over here, an underground facility here, and a grass paved emergency access. So each one of these BMPs is designed to retain all the stormwater runoff from the site, where none currently exists today. So that's a very good thing. We're given our NPS permit recently. This stormwater facility here is anchored by barnstone. So it's reused barnstone that's going to anchor the walls of the stormwater facility. Slopes, anchor, yeah. So it's going to anchor the slopes of the stormwater facility as a nod to the barn and to the properties. This stormwater facility, or stormwater facility over here, is a grass paved. So it's designed where in an emergency, most likely the East Goshen Fire Company is going to respond, and they're going to come and hopefully not plow through for the HOAC, but they might plow through that, there's a gate there, and then go up one. So it's designed to hold over 70,000 pounds of weight of a fire truck. So that's a little bit about stormwater. It's good that we have primarily above ground stormwater systems. Underground stormwater systems have a tendency to cave in over time. We've got one, obviously it's engineered to, to mine specs. That's not likely, but we always prefer above ground or on ground. I guess not above ground stormwater systems. So these pack of 4 townhomes over here, when you enter the development, these are going to be the front of the townhomes. So there's a little sidewalk here. They're 20-foot wide, 20-foot wide units, 2-car rear garage, small deck on the back, 3-bed, 2.5 bath, just under 2,000 square feet. So kind of meeting that middle, right, for maybe families upgrading out of a rental or someone downsizing out of a large estate home. And then as you come in, 3 parking spaces you see here are for this dwelling 20 also.
Can I ask you a question?
Please.
Part of the subdivision land development ordinance, we had chapter 72, specifically 72-36.1, talks about making the driveways there be EV charger rights, where you're going to be providing a conduit from the panel to the location where a charger may be located on the outside of each one of these units.
So great question. Short answer, yes, but it's going to be provided in the garage. So
right.
As it being sold, the homeowner's going to have the option to select to be charged.
That's what it calls for, it's in the garage.
Yeah, yeah. Great question. Yes, just real quick, I know I kind of spoke a lot about this, but part of what we're doing here for this historic home is there are 2 stone pillars here at the entrance at the parking facility for those. So you're going to pull up, there's going to be 2, not very tall, but stone pillars there. They're going to anchor your parking. And then this is a post and rail fence with wire, so people have pets, things like that. So you really actually get a nice big yard for an existing dwelling that feels like a single dwelling on a single lot, in this area. So there's a gate, there's a shed here that we did have a rendering of, but actually if you drive that house, you can see the shed shop right there waiting. So we'll probably get one of those. It's a beautiful colonial style white shed, and then there's an existing retaining wall here as well. So the product we feel very good about. We think the inside, the whole process is going to be inclusive of the history of the site. Right? There's a lot of details that we're working on how we're going to convey what this site was and how we're going to honor it. Right? Part of that is keeping the existing home, but part of that is in the process of educating homeowners on, hey, this single-family house has a really interesting history to it. It's part of the Underground Railroad. At one point, it was a tavern in the late 1800s. And, it's just, that being preserved as part of an HOA is actually a beautiful thing. Because now you know that while it's going to be maintained and owned by a single person or a single family, it can't be further developed, it can't have some sort of change to the site, to the view shed, especially when we're keeping those mature trees in. So those are some of the reasons why we're so excited about this. Why we're so excited about this.
So just to follow up on that, I mean, that's a really exciting opportunity here. Is this on the National Registry by any chance?
It's not, I know, Doug's on the story.
Okay.
It's, unfortunately, there's not a ton of, you need, correct me if I'm wrong, but you need two different sources of
Yeah,
documentation.
it's not where it's near historical.
Yeah.
I mean, are you thinking about getting some kind of plaque or something like that? Well, somewhere maybe on the side of the house or in front of the house or something like that?
We talked about plaques at the last historic commission meeting, so there's actually specific requirements for having a plaque. And I'm talking on my side, I have two historic commission members, so, correct me if I'm wrong, but you need two verified sources. It needs to be well documented of the history prior to the plaque for that. It's not as simple as we thought it was for the plaque. So the alternative to that is, we're talking about in each of the townhouses on a barn being mantle, having a small plaque that talks about the history about where.
When was that house built?
We don't have the exact date, but it was mid-1700s. But they have the history going back from when it was a 400-acre farm to now, and all the different pieces that were sold off back to William Penn. It's really very neat. That's that.
Now, you had asked for a height variance from 30 to 35 feet, and these are going to be 3-story townhouses with on a slab.
That's right.
Okay. My concern is, will these townhouses in height overshadow or overpower the house? And do you have a rendering?
We do have a rendering, great question. The final height was actually like 32 feet, 33 feet. It kind of varied a little bit, but it didn't go the full 35. But to answer your question, no. Currently, the barn is over 30 feet as it stands. And with all the landscaping there and the mature trees along, that kind of anchor the property, it's not going to look out of place. The house itself is over 26, well, 30, 20 or 30 feet tall, just in a 2-story house with a tall attic where it frees. Yeah, that'd be great. We have a couple of actual color renderings.
Yeah, one Brown and one Strasburg. There's one. That's from Strasburg.
Yes, this is the beautiful telephone pole. But as you can kind of see that you can't see the house in this view. But because of that berm that we're putting along the road with the landscaping, it doesn't, we're not towering, flat kind of shaded townhouses. They feel very nice.
Because we had that issue with the townhouses over on Everett Morrow's property next to Glen Acres. They tower over well, that was just a design.
Yeah, they're even, in some cases, over 40 feet, if I recall. R3C zone, I thought had a 40 foot. I think they're even taller than this. And they sit high up on that embankment there as well.
They got the variance agreement.
Yes.
You don't have to get it, they've already gotten.
I'm sorry, say again?
The height variance was granted.
Yes.
So it's not something they're requesting, it's already granted.
So this does show a little bit of a different entrance monument. Like I said before, we've got what's called a conical pillar, which is pretty typical on the bank barns in Chester County. So it's going to be a little more simple design, but it's going to have a nice sign that says Ellis Crossing, and we're going to incorporate some of those block views.
One of the questions, the topic is concerned to the supervisors is the affordability of new homes coming in. Now, I know we have an ordinance about the EV charging conduit. How much would that add to the cost of the house of doing that?
Not much at all. Are you saying specifically add the actual EV charger within the unit? Or just
Not the actual charger, the requirement of the ordinance, the conduit.
very, very minimal. Under $1,000.
Wouldn't that depend on the voltage you want to put?
Well, this is already spec'd out to be able to withhold EV chargers, so we'll have, you know,
Okay.
we'll have the required voltage for
Okay.
that, yes.
It's just a chaseway or a conduit
Yeah.
in the garage that allows future installation. There's no installation requirements.
Right, I
It'd
understand.
be up to the homeowner to either
Understand.
pay for it or do it through them or labor just like that. But it gives the raceway there to pull through. It's not required.
Okay.
It's just the open conduit.
If they
Conduit-
choose-
Sorry, John, you can correct me because you're retired and things have changed. But as far as I know, based upon the current electrical code, conduit is conduit. The size of the conduit is standard. It's the size of it, it's the wire pulled through it later when they put the charger in, it's what needs to be sized properly.
What is size conduit would be sufficient?
Yeah, just 1 inch conduit. Put in by.
Straight size, what is straight size? Would meet that requirement.
So it's just the open conduit within the walls, they have the 2 ends they can pull from.
Which quite frankly, for a job like that, was probably going to be a major part of it. So that's already in place while they're building it, we're saving the homeowner down the road a lot of trouble, a lot of mess.
And if they want to put it in, Rich's family.
Be up to them if they want to do it, but at least it's there.
There's no requirement to have it be connected, to make sure it's just a matter of having a conduit from the panel out to the park. If the panel's in the garage, it may just be a conduit through the garage from one side to the other.
Are we ready to consider the second waiver then?
Second motion.
I know.
Can I ask a clarification? What did you decide to do as far as the sidewalk width, being 4 feet or 5 feet? Is that-
That's not for them to decide, it's for the board. The only one they were deciding on was the sidewalk along. Because if, I thought that was more of a technical waiver for you, if you want them to weigh in on it.
Yeah, I haven't seen either. Tell us what you
We
think.
commented on it, but we didn't. Unofficial.
Yeah, but it's gonna kind of depend on what the ADA standards are, isn't it?
The conditions that, the way Carol worded it in her letter was comment number comment 3A 1, was we do not take exception to the request as long as the applicant represents the NDOT pedestrian facilities guide for the required turning areas. In my letter, I went one step further, and I said that I don't oppose it as far as they concur with Carroll Engineering statement required turning areas, but the rights outlined in PennDOT pedestrian facilities guide applicable AD site. So that's where I put it as the, might say I didn't object to it because there's two technical reasons that they can meet applicable ADA standards and that 4-foot sidewalk waiver, it's a policy decision for the board if they want to allow 4-foot sidewalk. So that's fine. My suggestion is if we allow it, I'm not going to oppose it if it's so that's kind of where we're at. You have to provide applicable ADA standards for the surface, the slope, and the turning areas.
Will it allow for wheelchair access, rollator access?
So ADA standards along the roadways, they don't have to meet it. Their ADA standards is the running slope of the road. So if the road is going downhill greater than 5%, the sidewalk's following the road. They don't have to flatten the sidewalk. Left to right has to be concurrent. Width or appropriate passing has to be concurrent. And anywhere they meet a driveway or meet a road has to have the proper ADA crossing for the ADA ramps. That's all they have to meet. If Ellis Lane coming down the slope is 7.5%, they don't have to flatten that sidewalk until they get down to the bottom, maybe 80 compliance at the bottom. You follow the road, that's 88 standards, just following the road surface. Because roads themselves are not necessarily 80 compliant if they're going down hill.
I'm just concerned about the width. If you have someone who has to push a rollator or who is in a wheelchair and someone's walking the other way, will that be?
That's what the ADA standards about the passing areas.
Yes.
Have to be so, they will be so far apart. They have to provide proper they have to design it properly to meet those passing areas. That's what the condition of that's what I recommended and Cal recommended is that
conditions upon the waiver. But in the end, the waiver for granting any of the waivers is up to the board.
Any other
How
questions?
should this second waiver be worded?
The second motion would be your motion of approval.
Yes, our motion to overall.
Okay, I'll approve your-
All right.
You don't have to make a recommendation to the waiver. If you want to, you can make a second waiver motion if you choose to about the width. But Carroll Engineering and I both chimed in on the technical aspect of it, which is more of a technical waiver than a planning waiver. The reason I brought the one waiver in front of you tonight was about the sidewalk was a planning waiver, and I know how important sidewalks along frontages are to renters in general.
Okay.
Typically, you would not weigh on a technical waiver.
That's, retention, stormwater basin is going to go in where the barn currently sits, right?
Correct.
So you can't save really any part of the barn.
Save, is maybe, we're thinking of it as repurposing. Right?
Okay.
We've got,
But you can't keep the barn.
yeah, it's,
And as far as, so you're going to have to take trees out and put those retention basins in.
yes, yeah.
Okay, and as far as tree replacement, are you exceeding the replacement standards?
Big time.
Well,
Yeah.
And-
We're in the landscape plan. We're getting rid of
So you're doing more than one for, you have to replace, put one back for every two you take.
Yeah. Short answer is yes, it's substantially a little bit.
So you're exceeding the,
Perfect.
Where's your tree replacement calculation?
okay.
Your trees were removed for 90, they're required to put 45, they're putting in 45. They're also, you can see the additional trees. They're putting in 13 additional trees on top of the 45.
I would just like to make one more comment. Originally, I was coming in here tonight and voting no on this because of the height and just changing that corner, which I kind of grew up around there. But after taking the planning course I just came out of, there's a little bit of a housing crisis here, so you're trying to put housing back, not super expensive, kind of a little bit expensive with, and clustering them with townhouses and preserving some open space. So I think I'm going to be okay with this.
Thank you, Don. We appreciate that. Very much.
So,
Thank you.
because a lot of people think, yeah, stop the building, too much traffic. There's that whole side, and then there's a whole other thing where the homes are getting so expensive here, and if we build more, it'll increase the supply, and prices might come down, or not to mess up anybody's home value, because that's like Cypress saying, but still, someone's got to pay for it.
Are you making a motion?
Yeah, would you like to make a motion then? I think we're ready for that.
Yeah, okay, motion.
Motion to
Motion to approve, so.
Are you putting in, Doug, are you putting in the conditions as I outlined in my letter?
Yes, motion to approve, including the conditions with Brian's letter.
There were 6 conditions in my letter.
Comments from the audience?
What, second? Wait a second.
Yeah, we need a second to that?
I'll second.
Yes.
Comments? Audience? Okay. All in favor of approval?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you guys very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
I think you can take this one for a second. I'll respond to one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Brian.
Thanks for all your hard work on this.
Likewise. Thank you.
It's not easy to do what you do.
I really appreciate it. Appreciate everything you guys do.
Okay, we have one last item, zoning hearing board applications. This is, the address is 106 Fairview Road. Applicant is seeking variances from section 8413A3 pertaining to minimum lot size for lots with public off-site sewer and water services. Proposing, I'll skip that, you can read the lot sizes pertaining to also the lot line width and pertaining to the building setback line, proposing 30 feet, in order to subdivide their current single-family residential lot into 2 single-family residential lots. I drove out, there's one house there, and I assume they own that whole lot, and they want to subdivide it so they can make another, but it has some problems with respect to the regulations.
So I'll put it up on the screen so you can see it on the screen. I'm going to bring it up to PDF this way. It's the same thing we submitted. Anybody here tonight for this application? I thought they would be here tonight to be able to answer their questions, but I'll do my best. This is the lot that is in question. It's this lot that's got a boot shape to it. They're requesting to basically divide the property in 2 and make 2 non-conforming lots with regards to lot size and setback and there's 3 variants and lot size, setback, or a lot width of the building line. So your orders requires the lot to be 100 feet wide, the building line, which is the front yard setback. They're going to be 85 feet. So they got that one. The minimum lot size is like 10,000, where the orders requires 18. So they have to go to the zoning hearing board for the variances. Typically, they would come to you because it's a plenty variance about taking a lot that's existing, making 2 non-conforming lots. So they have 1 existing, 1 proposed that they're looking to possibly sell or develop. Can't say what they're going to do with it. They would make that into 2. Does not comply with the zoning ordinance. So it's like in any other application before you for a zoning hearing board. The two options you have are you stay neutral, recommend the board stays neutral, and let the zoning hearing board to make the decision, where they present the has to do both. So we've got the phone posted speaker. The zoning hearing board, the board would send a solicitor to, or you recommend the board consider opposing the waiver request. They can't deny it, they can oppose it, which means the board would then send the solicitor on behalf of the township to oppose the waiver request. It's up, when this project goes in front of the zoning hearing board, this application, it is the burden of the applicant to present to the zoning hearing board what their hardships are and why they deserve to get the variances. But in the proof to you, this is just for you guys to say, what do you think? Do you think this proposal from the applicant to subdivide the property that's highlighted red on the screen, make 2 lots that are pretty much 50% smaller than they have to be on the legal size of the lot to allow those lots to be created? What do you think? Do you think it's good planning or bad planning? I think it's bad planning that you may want to make a motion that the board considers opposing the application. If you think it's bad planning, but let the zoning process play out, the zoning hearing board who was appointed to do the job to hear the case as the judge and jury, and let them do their job to hear the case, see if the applicant presents a case to them that they can consider, or you can make a motion, make a recommendation if you guys, the board just stays neutral to the application.
Those lots on the same side of the street, also non-conforming?
No idea. They did mention in their letter that they brought up, where is it? 3, they said they had several parcels they said are currently non-conforming in the Fairview Village. Now, when this Fairview Village was created, this is the lot right next to it. This lot was created, it looks like, first deed in 1959, the lot. Zoning ordinance, our first zoning ordinance was not until, I think it was 72. So potentially lots were created back in the day that were conforming or not conforming at the time, became non-conforming through zoning ordinance updates in history. Just because just because this lot here might be non-conforming doesn't mean necessarily that these people have the right to create two non-conforming lots. But that's a zoning hearing board question.
Are you aware of any precedent similar to this? Where someone's asking to split into two non-conforming, is there any recent precedent? that you know of?
Not this town, not that I know of, no. So this is strictly a zoning case, and typically these are presented directly to the zoning hearing board. We changed the policy, so that's why you got the cash. You've never seen it, the zoning board would have done their, held their hearing and done their, either granted the variance or denied it, or granted some of it, not all of it. They do their own, they sit independently.
I'll be honest with you, Tom, since I've been on the board, I can't think of one instance where we actually decided to oppose a request for the zoning hearing board. We decided to be neutral and let the zoning hearing board make their own decision.
So
But again, it's a matter of, if you feel really strongly about it, though, you could send our solicitor to oppose it before the zoning hearing board.
Yeah.
But we just haven't done that.
You're making a recommendation to the board, there's 5 members, you gotta get 3 of them to vote to send the solicitor. Not just John, you have to get 2 more besides John, and a piece that. And the lot next door is 12,150 square feet according to the tax records. So it is a non-conforming lot in the district, but it's larger, the drop next door is larger than what they're looking for, 10,000.
But that in and of itself does not sway me, because it could have been non-conforming.
Doesn't need to sway you, it needs to sway, it needs to be presented in a case to the zoning hearing board that a variance has a level of burden that the applicant has to go through to prove hardship and prove it.
It's a pretty high standard.
It's a pretty high standard, and that's what the zoning hearing board and the zoning hearing board solicitor, separate attorney and the township solicitor, are charged with holding the hearing. Court report is there, it's done like a hearing, and think about it this way. The zoning hearing board solicitor kind of sits as the judge, and the 3 members of the zoning hearing board sit as the jury. And the evidence is all presented by the applicant. They evaluate the evidence on that, they evaluate the evidence on the standards that are either ordinance or legal standards of Pennsylvania for granting a variance. That's their job to consider legal standards. Your job is, do we think this is a good plan?
If this were just a minor thing, a few hundred feet, square feet,
Yes.
I wouldn't have any problem. There's 3 different things. One is almost half.
Right.
So I would tend,
That was my first reaction.
I would tend to oppose it unless you could show that those adjacent houses are pretty close to the line.
They're claiming there's lots out there that are 8,000 square feet.
They would have to be in that line, not somewhere else. That would make it visually consistent. But I don't think you can put a house there that's.
Let's see where, so they've outlined a couple of addresses here. Let's look at and see what, really look at it, I can look and see where they're at here for you. So one's 100 South 5 Points Road, which I don't know where that is. Yes, Doug.
I'm confused as to what even is going on here.
There's nothing going on here.
This lot right here,
Yes,
is this the one that wants to subdivide right here?
somewhere, well,
Right here?
there is not a proposal, I'm looking at the plans in the packet I gave you, that came from, that was what they submitted for the zoning hearing board. And I'm not seeing in the packet, which you have a paper copy of everything they submitted. So the Onion Turner Burton Freeze cover letter that had all of the folded up 11 by 17 drawings attached to it. And this is what was presented, this is what was submitted to the zoning hearing board. And the last page shows the potential.
Okay. Okay, so what they want to do is, I don't want what they want to do is this lot right here
Yes.
is the one in question.
Yes.
And they want to subdivide this into 2 lots.
Yes. But they cannot subdivide it because it does not meet ordinance requirements for minimum lot size
Okay,
in the district.
but they think they can because there are other lots of that size around them.
Well, that's what, they think they don't think they can. They're using other lots as an example of non-conforming lots that are similar in size in the vicinity. So,
Yes,
So those are what already exists. So they want to make it non-conforming because other ones around them already exist, which
so
will be.
for example, this lot right here that I have highlighted, it says it's 8,250 square feet. It's the corner of 5 Points Road and Greenview Drive. That lot in the corner right there. That lot is, the lot they're looking at is this one right here. So one of the lots this lot right here is non-conforming, at 8,000 square feet. They're using that as an example, as justification for why this lot can be divided into 10,000.
It's probably
It's not for you
non-conforming
to
to
agree or
expenses.
disagree with their, all the question is, does the planning commission want to make a recommendation to the board that the board considers sending their solicitor, the board considers opposing the application, or is your wish the board stay neutral, let the zoning board do the job?
I'd like to make a recommendation that we stay neutral. The planning commission stays neutral.
Yeah, so the sketch plan shows a subdivision line here. Here's how it's going to work. If they get the variances, then they have to come back through for the subdivision plan. There's no proposed subdivision. This is strictly a, hey, this is what we think we'd like to do with the property if we get the variances as part of the package. So,
They got to do a stormwater plan, they got to do.
well, keep in mind, if they just do a lot line where they subdivide a lot, they try to sell it, whoever buys it then has to do all the stormwater. If they're going to actually show up the plan to develop it themselves, then they got to go through that process as part of it. They can create if the zoning hearing board grants the variance, then they can come back through with a plan to add the lot line and create 2 lots, just like with no construction proposed. Then the person who then, if they sell the lot as a buildable lot, then that person's going to do the whole process of building the permits.
I think this might be kind of bad planning because right here, it's kind of a funny shaped lot. How are they going to build on that?
They're not going to, according to them, that's according to the plan, that's the lot, that's the piece that's going to maintain the house here. Yeah, I have it.
I mean, there's a house right here.
Give me a second.
Yeah. The house is just search lot, it's going to stay.
This is the proposed, this is the potential, this is the potential plan they're showing. And this is the curve. This is the curve of the road. Cemetery's behind it. This is that odd piece they're showing. And they're saying this, they're showing how they can fit something there. Now, I think this is the existing house and this is the road.
Yeah.
So they're showing how they would divide it. And this, they can fit this in the lot.
I think that's bad planning.
It's a hand sketch. I can draw one right now and draw it up there on the screen. It's not a formal submission, but the only thing that's in front of you tonight is, do you think that the planning commission should make a recommendation to the board, supervisors, that the board stays neutral to the application for the variances, or the board opposes the variance request for allowing subdivision to allowing this applicant the right to smaller lot sizes?
I would, at the moment, John has a motion.
John has a motion.
Made a
Is there a
motion
second?
that the planning commission stay neutral.
Second, right? Okay. All in favor? Opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed. Okay, now hold on.
What was the total here? What was the vote?
Jerry, who else is opposed? Doug? Aye.
5-3.
It'd be 6. And Steve, what's your vote? Okay. You're okay with neutral? Neutral. So it's,
Neutral.
Neutral. Neutral.
Neutral.
Neutral. One, two, three, four, five. So five, four against.
So we're remaining
Yes.
But we're supporting the board and saying if they want to stay neutral, that's what we would recommend.
If the board chooses to oppose it, the board
They
chooses
can
to oppose it.
but we'll look for your recommendations.
It's just part of what they consider when they put this stuff forward. Yes.
Okay, and just, you see, this angle here can present a problem due to, they're gonna wanna, if they wanna build a house here, they're gonna have setback problems.
Well, part of their, one of their variance requests is a setback.
Yeah, this angle right here, if it was more like this, I could see it. But because it's here, I wouldn't prove that.
I think there's no argument that it's incredibly difficult for them to flip houses.
Brian, we need to render a decision at the 7 o'clock.
No, that's part of the next comment on the public comment, they should bring it up.
Okay.
So next.
So
It's not agenda, it'll be agenda of next month.
that's where we are.
So, one thing that I have for you guys for public comment is the last page of your packet is the potential meeting schedule for 2026. We just need to, it's going to go on the agenda for discussion at next month's meeting for a formal motion from the planning commission. I just wanted you to be aware of it, to see the dates and time, to confirm that next month when we do the formal motion to the board of the dates and the time will stay at 7 o'clock on the second Tuesday of the month of the date.
Do we have to tell you right now?
No. This is just letting you know that it will be on the agenda for December.
Okay.
But I wanted to give you the list because you have the list that you can look at it and it will be on the agenda for next month as a agenda item for adoption of the 2026 meeting schedule.
We're going to do elections next month.
If I remember correctly, in discussing with the solicitor and the manager, because we ran into issues with cars at the beginning of this year, that there is not a legal requirement for reorg in the beginning of January like there is for the board. You guys can do your officer election for 2026 in December if you choose. You can do it in January, you can do it in February, you can do it at any time. There's not a legal requirement. You have to do it the first business day of the year, what the board does on January 5th. They have to do it by law. There's no law that says you have to do a reorg meeting every year, but it's not a legal requirement.
Okay. I just wanted to bring something up. Everybody got Casey's email about the meeting for the,
But Casey and Chris,
I'm sorry, Chris.
January 28th
Yes.
is the joint planning commission and board meeting regarding the zoning ordinance that the planning committee has been working for the last year plus.
Yeah, so that might be a consideration on when that vote takes place to keep,
Well, the committee is done
Okay.
their job, as far as I understand,
Okay,
based
just so you
upon, but I don't quote me on that. The land planning committee has finished going through the entire ordinance.
And how's your point when we're looking for public comment?
So that's what the meeting is for public comment. Also, you'll be getting a draft ahead of time to review and your comment as well.
So it's not set in stone, it's still a
Right.
work in progress, but we're opening up the audience, so to speak.
So
so
the
that
second,
might be a consideration if there are things that have to be followed up on to keep
well,
some things in
at
place.
that point, anything that's followed up on will be done between the planning commission and the board to the consultant. The planning commission won't be sent, unless the board decides to send it back to the committee. They
Okay.
can, depending on feedback. But what the idea is actually a compiled draft ordinance you will be discussing. We're not going to be looking at the drafted working sections that they were marking up and going through the notes and stuff. We're looking at a compiled draft ordinance for that, my understanding. That's the,
I'd like to just make two comments. First comment is, we should still consider making bylaws for the planning commission and the annual report as per the MPC requirement. And also, I'd be willing to volunteer to help with that. At the course, they did give us examples, so that should be easy to do. And also, we took Steve and I took the Saldo course given by the county and PI, Pennsylvania Institute of Municipal Planning, and it was very good. We talked about flag lots and how to avoid them, and the problems with them, and all kinds of cul-de-sacs and setbacks and streets and sidewalks. It was very, very good course.
A lot of that course does not apply here to this township because we don't have the land. So there's not much space left to subdivide, right?
But it was still great.
Still, you learn, it's a good course. I've been through parts of it and been through all of it in different pieces. But a lot of it applies, is more relevant to way more rural townships that are still moving through development. You're more of an infill, so flag lots are not going to be much of an issue unless city traffic to wedge one in. We just had one come in on 5 King Susie. That was a larger parcel that could get into. Most of your parcels are big enough to subdivide.
Right.
You don't have a lot of that left.
And they also covered open space preservation through clustering, things like that, and addressing housing and housing affordability issues. It's good course.
And one of the things I got out of it was, we see preliminary plans, that's like the 90%. That's what the plans are going to be. So it's a preliminary, even though it's called preliminary, it's really like a final plan. So when we see that, we got one shot at it, talk about it, and to make our comments, because we may not see it again, we may go right to the supervisors from there or whatever, course.
If an applicant goes through the preliminary, the standard two-step process, preliminary to final, you'll see it in the final. The state law, PA state law allows an applicant to build the property at risk off of a approved preliminary plan. They can build it, and the final plan is the as-built. If they don't meet anything in the as-built, then the final plan they have to correct.
Yeah, that's right. They're allowed to, but it's rarely done.
It's really done because they can't get any. Unless you have more money than you know what to do with, and you can self-finance it.
Well, you're not going to take that risk. If it gets changed, then you've already taken a bite out of the apple.
Right, doing that, but also I don't know of anybody that's able to get a construction loan with just a preliminary plan. They need to record a final plan, because you don't record preliminary plans, you record final plans. So they can't get their financing without the recording. So that's why there's two options in the NPC, which I'm sure you potentially explain. Option one is you build a preliminary plan at risk to the developer, fully self-funded, you don't get it. And then you come to the planning, you come back to the planning commission of the board with your final plan, which is your as-built. I review the as-built as it's the final proposed plan. Anything doesn't get the ordinance, they have to dig it up and replace it and change it. Versus getting it approved on paper to show that it meets it, it's the difference. So that's what, so yes, a preliminary plan is, I would say from experience of designing them, it's more like a 70 to 80% plan. It's not 90, because there's a lot of detail that is not required by our ordinance that's in the final plan, not preliminary. This current ordinance is constructed by Sal. But you are correct, it can be built. Some townships have a much more robust requirement for preliminary than we do, because our salary is old. But I would say it's for professional experiences, and my opinion that is it's probably a 70 to 80% plan for West Goshen Township, just to meet our preliminary standards.
And another thing we want to avoid is deemed approvals. But
we're very careful about the time clock. We're very careful about the time clock. So that is deemed approval is if the township does not request an extension of the MPC time clock, which is 90 days. So tonight you had the application for 621 before tonight. Their time clock starts today. So legally 9 days from today is the legal date that has to be either approved or not by the board. We managed, Shelby and myself, she has it on her calendar and I support her with it. Tomorrow the time clock, if it gets close, we request an extension from the applicant to extend that time clock. They are allowed to grant the extension. If we don't grant the extension, then we can go to the solicitor and they can draft a motion for the board to deny the plan.
So we use them to just grant things.
And usually we don't have any issues getting at least the first extension. Sometimes they don't grant it, but if they're dealing with a property or they're dealing with comments that we've given them, they have no, it's because if they don't grant the extension, we deny it, then they gotta start over and reapply and apply to the current ordinance. So if the zoning ordinance changes between the time they submit the first application and the second one, they have to submit in the current ordinance, they submit the second down. What they're doing, for example, the C1 district with the Wawa and gas station, if they were denied, that would resubmit under the current ordinance, it would be submitted. So that's why it behooves the developer to keep the ordinance, keep the timeline. Now, preliminary plan also vests rights to the developer. If they get a preliminary plan approval, any ordinance change within 5 years, they don't have to abide by. So they get a preliminary plan approval, 620 normal gets 620 normal gets approved, and the minimum lot size is at 18,000. The ordinance changes in 2 years, and says it's got to be 25,000, and their lots aren't big enough. We can't force them to update the plan because it's within that 5 year limit.
Any further comments from the audience? I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.